Good day. The early 2000s was truly the golden age of gaming. Every game that came out was, if not a masterpiece, close to it. And oftentimes, the sequel would actually outdo the original game. Today, we're taking a look at one such game that has sadly been overshadowed by its successor, Star Wars Battlefront 1.
Star Wars Battlefront was developed by Pandemic Studios and published by LucasArts on September 21st, 2004 for the PC and all the major consoles of the day, sans the GameCube. Later in 2024, the game would be remastered and re-released on all modern consoles. However, as of this review, it has a number of issues, and due to this, I will be reviewing the original PC version of Battlefront 1, and this version is still available on major digital distribution platforms, and this version we're looking at today in particular is the GOG version, and this is by far the best version to get for the PC, as it allows for higher screen resolutions and a few other minor enhancements. The first time I saw mention of Star Wars Battlefront was on a placard at the local Game Crazy. We were spoiled for choice back in 2004, and back then, getting every game you wanted was no easy feat due to the sheer number of top-tier games being released. In 2004 alone, we had both Halo 2 and Doom 3, in addition to Star Wars Battlefront 1, and teenage General Lotz had to make the ultimate choice. And sadly, Battlefront 1 would be chosen last, but it was more than worth the wait. In those days, I played it on the Xbox original, and the controls were excellent, and there were only a few minor downgrades between it and the PC version. The PlayStation 2 version, which I would play way later, would also be pretty bloody good as well, with only a few more downgrades than the Xbox version. When you consider how complex a game Battlefront is, it's a true miracle of the machine god that it runs as well as it does on a console from the year 2000. Star Wars Battlefront 1 is a third/first-person shooter, and you can toggle between the two perspectives on the fly. I personally prefer to play the game from the third-person perspective, as it gives me more spatial awareness. This is a conquest-based shooter where you pick from 1 to 2 factions and then select a unit type to play as. In the game, you'll take part in battles that take place in large game spaces, and your main objective is to deplete enemy reinforcements. When they reach 0 reinforcements, you win the map. And you can do this in one of 2 ways. You can shoot enemies in the face, and you can capture their control points. If you manage to capture and hold all their control points, you will quickly deplete their reinforcements. You can fight on foot, or you can jump into a number of vehicles that are found on almost all of the maps. You have land vehicles like the AT-ST, and you have flying vehicles like the Anther Sprite Jedi Starfighter. Any unit you choose can control a vehicle. Vehicles are pretty good at getting you killed, and to actually win a given map, you will have to get out of the given vehicle and stand by the control point. You can play the game either single player or multiplayer. In 2003, I did not play this multiplayer, as I was not only not a fan of multiplayer in general, but I didn't even have the provision for it back in those days. I have, however, played Battlefront 2 multiplayer, and its multiplayer along with its gameplay is largely similar to the first Battlefront, and I can report that multiplayer is pretty awesome when you and a friend can team up to take on the bots. The gameplay, while simple in theory, is chaotic, and no 2 battles will be the same. Battlefront did not pioneer this type of gameplay. Instead, it was DICE and their Battlefield 1942 series of games. But Pandemic was able to take what they did and refine it to where it was even more fun. The maps for Battlefront 1 did not have a bunch of wasted space, and the game was single-player friendly, unlike Battlefield 1942. In addition, in 1942, you had a spawn timer even in single-player, and believe me, that got old fast. In Battlefront 1, if you play this game single-player, you can respawn immediately after you die. The enemy AI, while not perfect, will still give you a pretty good challenge. They can mostly control the vehicles, but when they get into a plane, they can either be a threat or they can fly straight into the ground. The factions featured in this game are classic. You have the Rebels, the Empire, the Republic, and Count Dooku's Tinny Boys, aka the Confederacy of Independent Systems. This is a time capsule. This came out before Revenge of the Sith, and this is how things were in the Clone Wars before any of the new crap happened. Battlefront 1 featured a good number of character classes that were broadly similar to the ones seen in Battlefield 1942. You've got the poor bloody infantry, you've got the heavy weapons guy, you've got the sniper, you've got the pilot, which is the support class, and finally you had a special class, and each faction will have their own special class. For the Empire, you've got the the Dark Trooper Phase 1, which would be retconned into being a cyberized clone trooper. Not sure we really needed to go that far in justifying its existence. For the Republic, you've got the Jet Trooper, which is almost entirely useless, as his primary weapon doesn't really do that much damage and has no AoE. Then for the Rebels, you've got the Wookiee, which is completely broken and overpowered. But if you think the Wookiee was broken, oh dear. The Confederacy of Independent Systems has basically the Cheat Master General here. The Droideka is the most broken unit in the entire game and ensures that when playing single player, defeating the CIS is going to be an uphill struggle. The Droideka has 4 repeating blasters and an energy shield that can tank numerous hits. The Republic has absolutely no counter for this, and if you leave the AI to its own devices, it will lose every bloody time. These classes would be largely carried over to Battlefront 2, but they would be tweaked a bit. In this game, you can select the special units from the get-go, whereas in Battlefront 2, you had to get a number of kills to unlock them, and this went a long way towards balancing the game. Heroes appear, but they are very simple, and you cannot control them, but I love them here even more than I do in Battlefront 2. They are essentially immortal on every single map except for Bespin Platforms. Really, Bespin Platforms is the best map in this game and the entire Battlefront duology. Like Rogue Squadron's Talaran, it's a beauty. It's the closest thing to space that this game has, and you will have all these flying vehicles zipping around, and the enemy AI is good enough to shoot them down with AA fire, which makes for a really kick-ass challenge. I cannot tell you how many hours I put into this map. Even though the hero units in this game are immortal, you can knock them down with explosives, and since Bespin has no ground, it's super fun to knock Dooku the cheating bastard into the abyss. There are no ranks and no upgrades. The game just doesn't give a crap how good you do in any given map. Funny enough though, many of the upgrades you can get in Battlefront 2, like homing missiles, are here by default. There are a few other little differences from Battlefront 2. The loadout for the various character classes are different in terms of weapons, and Battlefront 2 would fix some of the loadout deficiencies. You can go prone, which is not that useful in single player, and you can potentially command other units in single player, but most of the time they don't seem to listen. However, they are a little better about listening than the bots in Battlefield 1942, because in that game, those bloody jumped up Skynet wannabes would outright tell you no! In Battlefront 1, you have a total of 16 maps, and Bespin Platforms is the best of the lot, but there is no bad map in this game, and each map will give you countless hours of enjoyment. Despite Battlefront 2 pretty much improving upon every single element of Battlefront 1, there is one aspect of Battlefront 1 that stands above Battlefront 2, and that's the loading screen. Oh, good God, ladies and gentlemen, was I super disappointed when Battlefront 2 didn't have loading screens as good as this. When you load into a map, you start with a satellite view of the planet you're going to fight on, and it zooms in until you finally get into the game. And Battlefront 1 also had full first-person cockpits. I was very disappointed that this did not appear in Battlefront 2, and these first-person cockpits really make the game more immersive. This is a type of game that never gets old, as it's all just gameplay. Yeah, your goal is the same in each map, but how you achieve it will be different from even moment to moment. The game did ship with the story and Galactic Conquest mode, but I largely ignored both and just played instant action and made up my own story in my head. Or I would just put on some Aussie and rock out while blasting bots until the wee hours of the morning. The campaign for this game is far simpler than the 501st Journal in Battlefront 2. Here, you just go through some movie battles with a little narration. Galactic Conquest has you conquering the galaxy, and I did this once as the Empire. You can get bonuses depending on what planets you control, and the enemy can get bonuses depending on what planets they control. Eventually, as the Empire, you can unlock the Death Star, and oh yeah, I did blow me up a few planets. This game really showed how kick-ass Pandemic was gonna be. Damn you, EA, you bloody money-grabbing bastards. Despite all the good in this game, Battlefront 2 just completely overshadowed it in every way, and sadly made it obsolete. A number of the maps here were in Battlefront 2, only they were better. And then on the PC version of Battlefront 2, there are mods where you can import all the maps from this game into that one, sadly making this game pretty much superfluous. Graphically, this game still looks damn good. The maps are huge, there's lots of details, and the troops have some great animations. This PC version of the game is from GOG, and the GOG version runs great on a modern system. Just don't run it at anything over 1080p, otherwise you will get graphical garbage. In 1080p, however, the game still looks great. Sound is kick-ass. Every time you go into battle, it's a feast for the ears. You will hear the various, "We gained a command post," "We lost a command post," but even that's less cool than in Battlefront 2, as there's no additional chatter. What VA work you got in this game is rudimentary, but we do have the King, aka Tamora Morrison, voicing the clones, so that is still a huge plus. Music is the Star Wars score, but Pandemic samples it well. Despite the transcendence of Battlefront 2, Battlefront 1 will always have a special place in my heart, and will always be one of my favorite games of all time. Now, if you're one of those poor unfortunates that wasn't even alive in 2004, I say pick up the game anyway for $5 on Steam, as while it will give you a more basic experience than Battlefront 2, it will still give you a fun experience all the same.
If it's been about 20 years since you played the original, the OG, the true Battlefront, it's time to pop it in and remember why Bestman Platforms is truly the greatest map in all of Battlefront. I am General Lotz, wishing you good Star Wars, Jedi Starfighter, and good Dark Forces, whatever makes you happy.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and please consider leaving a like or a comment, as the algorithm desires your soul. And I want to thank all those fans who have supported this channel, both past and present.